Well, good evening. My name is Garen, and I have another video for you on the beast from the bottomless pit. I'm going to try to finish this lesson up tonight. This will be the final part, third part. Before we get into it, I want to remind you of the questions that was asked at the end of video number 2. I want to go over those questions with you and see if you've had time to look at it and come up with an answer, or do you just are you able to believe what I told you? The first question was, who was the true ruler of Alexander's Grecian Empire? And that would be the Prince of Greece. What kingdom did the four-headed leopard beast symbolize? That was the 4 divisions of Alexander's Grecian Empire. When he died, his empire was divided into 4 different nations, and that represents the 4 heads on this beast. So that would be Greece. Who is the spirit out of the bottomless pit? We know that it is the spirit of Grecia. We can go to Revelation 13 verse 18 and find out who it's not, because that verse tells us that the Antichrist is a man, and we know that man does not come from the abyss. So the spirit from the bottomless pit would be the Prince of Grecia. Then I ask, what is the breakdown of Revelation 17 verse 8? This is a very important verse. You need to be able to break it down and to understand what it's saying here. And the question is, who was this individual? And there came a point in time when he is not, and then later on he yet is what he once was. So you have to understand this, and when you can see it, everything opens up. You get a whole new picture of what's going on. What do the 7 heads symbolize? They symbolize mountains. And what do these mountains symbolize? They symbolize kingdoms. These 7 heads, you have to know what they are to understand these prophecies. The 7 heads represent 7 kingdoms. Here, we are not talking about 7 individual kings, but we're talking about 7 different kingdoms or 7 different governments. Now we're going to get into the last part. We're going to start off in Daniel 8 verse 23. And that verse tells us that a king of fierce countenance at understanding dark sentences shall stand up. In other words, this is the Antichrist, and his power will be mighty. Verse 24 says, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. In other words, what he does through the help of somebody else. You've all heard this. We've all heard it in church. You have heard it said that the Antichrist is completely sold out to Satan, that he becomes demon possessed. It is the power of this satanic Prince of Grecia who takes his orders directly from Satan. He is the one that controls and dictates the actions of the Antichrist. The Antichrist will attack and conquer 3 kingdoms of the 10 kings. When this happens, the Prince of Grecia will once again rule the kingdom he ruled with Alexander. The Grecian Empire will be alive again. We have learned that the heads represent mountains, and the mountains represent kings. In other words, you cannot be a king if you don't have a kingdom. Revelation 9 and 10, or 17 verses 9 and 10. This tells us which head, or in other words, which kingdom was wounded to death in Revelation 13. Revelation 13 is a place where a lot of people get confused and stumble and get all mixed up. This makes it very clear. The 5th head, the 5th kingdom, will come back alive as the 8th head. In other words, the Antichrist is never assassinated. This is a world government that has died and no longer existed with any strength. It was a world power that used to have power but lost their power and just run-of-the-mill government. But there will come a time when that particular nation will have a new government come in, that they will change things up, and they will come back as powerful or more powerful than what they was originally. But on the other hand, if you believe that there is a person that is assassinated and then resurrected or brought back, then you must believe in reincarnation. And this is something that the Bible does not teach. All the world wondered after the beast, because no world power has ever died out and then come back as a new world power. That's never happened in history. This is Revelation 13:3. So when is the beast released? The beast, the supernatural spirit, the prince of Grecia, he is the invisible supernatural satanic prince of Grecia, is released after the seventh head is formed, that head being made up of 10 kings, Revelation 17:11. After his release, he helps Antichrist rise to power. This happens in the first 4 seals of Revelation 6. And when he receives his crown in Revelation 6:2, which is his rule over Syria. As the ruler of Syria, the Antichrist has the ability to negotiate with other nations, and he makes a treaty with Israel. And he says that he will protect Israel from their enemies for a period of 7 years. But then at the end of 3.5 years, he will turn on them and take away that protection, and he will start to abuse them and oppress them himself. Just before the middle of the tribulation, the rest of the 10 kings, the other 7, will give all their power and authority to the Antichrist, causing him to rule over all the old Roman territory by mid-tribulation. In other words, the rest of the 10 kings would be the rest of the 6 kings, because the Antichrist will have his kingdom plus the 3 that he conquers, which would be 4 of the 6, and then the last 6 will also give up, and he will control them also. When he breaks his treaty with Israel and turns on them at the middle of the tribulation, the 2 witnesses show up with the main purpose of preaching and turning the hearts of Israel back to God and to teach others in order to avert the judgment of God. You can find that in Malachi 4, 5, and 6. Now, early on, I think in the first video, I gave you a tip that I felt like was pretty important, and I wanted you to remember it, so I brought it to your attention. This is the second tip. This is something that I feel like you need to be aware of and needs to be brought to your attention. This prince of Grecia comes out of the bottomless pit 3.5 years before the 2 witnesses appear. There's no statement that says the beast comes out of the bottomless pit in the middle of the week. Scripture simply states that the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and eventually kill them. Revelation 11:17. The fact that the 2 witnesses cannot be killed by the beast until they have finished their testimony, and their testimony is 3.5 years, proves that he does not immediately destroy them. Here's your third tip. All passages that refer to the 42 months, the 1260 days, or 3.5 years, whether it's in Daniel or Revelation, this always refers to the last half of Daniel's 70th week. When do the 2 witnesses appear? The 2 witnesses are not mentioned until the middle of the week, or after the seals and the first 6 trumpets. The prophecy of Revelation 11 and verse 2 covers the holy city being tread underfoot by the Gentiles 42 months. In verse 3 of the same chapter, the same prophecy covers 1260 days that the 2 witnesses will prophesy. These 2 verses refer to the first half of the week, next to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming. Next is the Battle of Armageddon, and the second coming of Christ. Now, that concludes what I have on the beast from the bottomless pit. I do have 5 questions here I'd like for you to be able to answer. If you can answer these, I think you'll clear up a lot of things for you. Number 1 is, who controls the Antichrist? And that is the Prince of Grecia. He is the unseen entity that rules and dictates over the Antichrist and causes him to act like he does. The second one is, which kingdom will come back alive as a new world power? In Revelation 13:3, that will be Greece. Number 3, of the five heads, which will come back as the 8th head? Which one will come back as the 8th head? That would be the 5th one. I think it's in Revelation 17:10. They are listed that 5 have fallen, and the last one that has fallen, the 5th one, is Greece, and Greece will come back as the 8th head. Number 4, when does the Prince of Grecia come out of the bottomless pit? He comes out 3.5 years before the 2 witnesses appear. He comes out 3.5 years before the 2 witnesses appear. He comes out right after the rapture. He helps Antichrist come to power, and he gets to full power by the mid-tribulation. And at mid-tribulation, then the 2 witnesses appear, and the beast will fight them for the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. When do the 2 witnesses appear? After the seals and the first 6 trumpets. Now that's all I have on the beast from the bottomless pit. I've made a lot of statements that maybe you haven't heard before. Come at it from a little different point of view. But I think if you'll consider it and study it, you'll see that this makes a lot more sense and is more understandable than a lot of things that you've heard on this subject. That's all I have. I thank you for listening. I hope that you benefit from it, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you later. Bye.